Yeah, okay. So let's do music first, yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you think right?
Um,
Because oh no, go ahead.
no, I was just saying that, like, I mean, I know that music and language go together,
Yes.
so, like, it would probably be, like, really quiet
Oh,
without
definitely.
without music.
It would be kind of like if everyone was like deaf in a sense.
Yeah.
Like it would kind of be like in a society where we wouldn't need ears. Well, maybe things would still
Oh.
make like sound effects per se. Like if you shut a door, that would be audible, but like nothing else would be, right? Like sound effects that you like naturally like walking and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Like you'll be able to hear yourself think, but you won't like. Well, no, you wouldn't,
No, you
because
would.
there's no language for you to think in.
Yeah. Would you like think images then,
Maybe.
or like? Yeah, that is weird. I mean, which one am I going to? 24. All right.
No, but like in a sense, like the you would, if we're talking about what you would think without music or language, for one, songs wouldn't be stuck in your head. That's an obvious plus side to that.
That's true.
But like an obvious negative is how would you think? Would you think in written words?
Maybe.
Well, that depends on what your definition of language is. Does
Yeah.
language mean like no voice or text?
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
no language would mean no letters, wouldn't it?
you have spoken language and you have written language.
Yes. But those are both like languages, so technically if you wouldn't have language, you wouldn't have either.
Yeah.
What that would mean is that if you don't have music or language, it would be near impossible to communicate with anyone or anything.
Yeah, you just wouldn't.
Or maybe we'd all just be more animals, right? Because animals can communicate through noises and actions that we can't understand.
Right.
Like to them, it may not just be gibberish like what we hear.
Yeah.
Maybe the same logic would apply.
Maybe. Like, we would just, like, make sounds, you're saying?
Yes,
I mean, because sounds
but
aren't
like
language. It's separate, right?
sounds aren't really language. That was unfortunate. Sounds aren't really language, but like, what do you think that would mean for different races?
um,
Like, do you think, for example, people that speak English now and people that speak Spanish now, would they make the same noises or do the same things?
um, probably.
There's no way to tell. Like, of course, people are gonna look different from each other, but like, you can't sound different because you can't make noises other than just gibberish per se.
Yeah.
Is gibberish a form of language?
Uh, maybe? What's the definition of gibberish?
I really don't know actually.
You want to Google it?
Yeah. So on. Alright, let's see. Um, okay, so according to Google, gibberish is unintelligible or meaningless speech or writing.
So, speech or writing?
Yes, that would mean that gibberish is a form of language.
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean that we couldn't make noises because that would also be considered gibberish, which is a type of language.
Yeah. What about, like, humming?
That's. I guess that would be considered noises too, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
humming a language? um, humming in language. The only surviving dialect of the Mura language, there's a special register of speech which uses solely humming.
Yeah.
So, I'd imagine that things like humming, whistling, stuff like that would also be considered language.
Yeah. I mean,
So life without music or language could be a lot of different things depending on what language is.
yeah, because it's a very broad definition. It's very broad and very
Yeah.
vague. That was
Yeah,
close.
definitely. It was. You still dead. Oh. No, but like, actually, I guess it would be considered language, so we really wouldn't have a way to communicate at all, right?
Yeah. So then,
So, thinking about it, music could be considered a form of language since it's a form of communication, isn't it?
yeah.
So, life without language would include life without music.
Yeah.
Okay. So, getting that out of the way, what do you think ambiance is? Like stuff that isn't made to be music.
Does it
Kind of
have
more just like relaxing. Or just like,
does it have
I don't
like
know how to describe it, but you should know what ambiance is.
does it have like an intended purpose? Or is it just there to like like
I'd say it's more as like a there to fill space type thing, but
I
of course
mean,
there are some things like instrumentals that don't convey like words,
yeah.
but it's still considered language because it is music.
Right.
So the definition of music is broad too, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is specifically
Or
according
let's
to
switch
like
above you.
Google.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm doing by this level multiple times.
Okay, so what if, let's say, for example, you wanted to talk to somebody, but you don't know how to communicate with them.
Right?
Would you have to use, like, solely actions? Like
Probably.
hand shakes, hand waves, stuff like that?
But like along with that, you have sign language. But that
Oh,
is a
yeah,
language.
that is the type of language. So, I guess that would be something that you couldn't do either.
Yeah, I mean, dude.
Now, I want to propose something different that I just thought of.
Okay.
What if? Okay, hear me out. So, we're going off of life without music and language, yes?
Yes.
What if instead of music and language just not existing, it was more along the lines of you can't because the government tells you not to?
So it has to do with
Illegal.
legality instead of
Yeah,
possibility.
yes.
Okay. Um, I
Let's
mean,
assume you can't communicate with anybody using music, any type of language, written, spoken, sign, anything like that.
okay.
But like higher ups, like people that run the government can't.
That'd be
In other
weird.
words, you understand the music and the language, but you can't speak it.
I mean, whether something's legal or not, people will find ways to do it, so...
Well, yeah, but like, what if you're being like 24/7 monitored? Let's say, like you're being monitored by the government every hour of your day and night, right?
Right?
If you're caught doing it, you have a death penalty. Let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, that
In
works.
other words, if you speak or just even try to conduct anything music or language wise, you die for it.
Yeah. Like, instantly?
Well, it's like how death penalty works like modern day, right?
Right.
Like, assuming this is sometime in the future, assuming, let's say, under some circumstance, like, under some circumstance, let's say that you just, or maybe like, since it's something like it's illegal, you are choosing not to do it. Okay, 3 times in a row. Cool.
Hope you're feeling jumpy today, she says.
Alright, so, let's say, since it's something that is illegal, if you do it, you're choosing not to do it. As in, you can, but you won't.
Right.
So it's not a matter of you don't know, it's a matter of you can't.
Right.
How do you think that would work?
I mean, I assume that people would try to find ways to do it that's not around, like, that's not strictly following the definition of language, it's something else, and so therefore technically illegal.
But that depends on the definition of language.
Right.
Let's see, language is the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way.
Okay.
So, language can also be any non-verbal method of expression or communication. So facial expression is considered language.
Right.
So that means that you have to always have a straight face. Like, you can't change your facial expression either.
How? But wait, wouldn't that mean having a straight face is also language because it is an expression?
That is a good question. I'd imagine so. Maybe it's assuming this is like a you can but you won't type situation. You have to go off of, like, the straight faces are all you can do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's restricted so you can't freely express yourself, but it's not, like, super restricted to the point where you can't make any face, right?
Right.
Because the only way that you would be really not being communicating in any way would be if there was some way to have a facial expression that isn't considered language.
Right.
Which is impossible.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would have to bend the rules a little bit to make it so that
Yeah.
you weren't, like... Yeah.
It's not 100% no language, but it's mostly no language.
Yeah.
Because there have to be things that you can do, like things that are out of your control. But, like, doing something with the intention of expressing yourself is illegal.
Okay. But, like...
Right?
Yeah, but, like, how would that work when you're trying to, like, tell someone that, like, you're hungry? Or something. Like, how would that work?
You can't. They have to guess.
That would be really infuriating.
So, imagine what school would be like.
Oh, no. I haven't even thought about that.
Terrible in every way possible. Yeah, even worse than it already is.
Yeah.
So, I guess the takeaway from this is that, school wouldn't work. Just education as a whole wouldn't work, right?
Yeah. Because there'd be
That
nothing
would
to teach
also mean
about.
no advertisements.
Yeah.
Or, like, billboards, or, like, creation of anything, because you can't communicate with others. You'd have to do things entirely on your own.
So would that mean that school is illegal?
That would mean that schools wouldn't be built, since everything business-wise would have to be run by the government.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't create businesses for yourself. The government has to monitor what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if they aren't monitoring what you're doing, they don't know if you're communicating through music or language, right?
Right.
So what that would have to mean is that everything that you do, no matter what it is, would have to be monitored. Even your death.
Yeah.
So, funerals. Let's talk about that.
Talk
Right?
about what?
How would you arrange a dowry?
Arrange what?
A gathering. Like,
Um,
say, like a family gathering, somebody in the family died, let's say.
I don't know. Like,
You wouldn't be able to.
right. So, like, no one would know about anybody's passing?
I guess not, unless the government is allowed to, like, no,
Communicate
okay.
that.
Assuming the government is allowed to communicate with nobody else is, the government could somehow be told of the passing, but how would you tell them of the passing without it being considered language?
I mean, that would have to involve, like, them, like, spying on everyone. And then
Oh,
just
yeah.
knowing.
Well, if we're talking 24/7 monitoring, then, like, I guess they could find out on their own and organize things that way.
Yeah.
So going off of that, um, let's say, for example, let's talk about, like, communication online.
Mhm.
Of course, texting is a type of language too, right?
Right.
This would mean that making videos are also types of language.
So we're breaking the law right now, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be considered breaking the law. What we're doing, yeah.
But then, like, so anytime you try to express your something, the only form of punishment you would receive is the death penalty.
Yeah, there's no way around the death penalty.
But what about other crimes?
Other crimes, like what? Like, are we just talking like other types of punishments or other types of crimes?
Um, like other types of punishments for other crimes. Like,
I'd imagine they'd be the same as they are now, except like,
yeah, probably.
of course, if you let's say you try to break into a store, like commit a robbery, right? You can't do that
Right.
because what are you gonna steal?
I don't even know.
They'd have to. Stores wouldn't work then per se
Yeah.
because if you write like numbers or something on like a price tag for an item, that's communication.
You're right. I've never thought about that before.
If you're telling someone the price of something, maybe working at a register, that's communication.
Yeah.
So stores wouldn't work because you couldn't put price tags on things or buy things. So that would be like the purge in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you'd have to just go into a building and steal things. Because stealing things isn't a form of communication if nobody is around to...
Communicate with.
Of course, yeah. So if you were getting robbed, you couldn't stop the person robbing you.
Right.
Because that would be communication.
So would robbery still be legal?
I guess not. It's not much you can do, like, without music and language.
Yeah, and since using language is illegal, anything that you would do that doesn't involve language is perfectly legal. So under that assumption, robbery would be legal.
Under that assumption, robbery would be legal.
Yeah.
You playing your game would be completely illegal.
Yeah.
However, it couldn't be online because that's communication. Like, even if you voice chat, whatever, simply because Wi-Fi, for example, is online communication.
That's right. Like through the server.
Yes. So that would mean that internet connection would work because of connection.
Right. I guess connection and communication are different.
Unless, like, maybe, like, of course the government has to use some type of technology to monitor everyone, but, like, someone not working in the government couldn't use any form of communication at all, right?
Right.
Because communication is language.
Yeah, so like, how would we talk to the government? How would
We
we...
wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there really wouldn't be much to say to them, though, except asking them why the hell it's illegal to communicate.
Right? And if you were to... Now, let's take this into consideration. I want to bring this back up because I feel like this is a good time to. You're gonna die.
I know.
It's not a matter of you don't know, it's you can't.
Yeah.
In other words, you can communicate, you can talk to people, but you won't because it's illegal.
Yeah.
So, going off of that, that would mean that to an extent, it would be okay, but you couldn't do it simply because you're being monitored and that is punishable by death penalty.
Yeah. So, it wouldn't technically be a world completely without language because there would have to be a way to communicate that communication is not legal, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You have to be able to tell people not to communicate and why they can't communicate, or else they're going to, right?
Yeah.
In other words, talking is a crime, let's say.
Right.
So, let's assume things like no. So you couldn't buy things or sell things at stores, stuff like that, right? Obviously. What if you were to, like, for example, drug deals nowadays are considered illegal, right?
Right.
That is also a form of language, right? Like because you're still buying and selling.
Right.
So you couldn't do that either. You could not give other people items because that is communication.
Yeah.
In other words, you would have to rob to do anything, so robbery would have to be legal.
Right.
What else do you think it would be okay to do, like, nowadays, though? Because, like, you clip that. I believe, like, how do you think money would work?
I have no idea. Because money is
I
communication.
would guess, yeah. I would guess that money just wouldn't work. Or money is still something you have to use because money goes to the government, right?
Yeah.
I'd imagine that unless you're going to, let's say, unless you're going to just like, no, I want to bring something up. Let's say you have to get the money somehow. Yeah, do that.
We're not
you have to get the money somehow.
Yeah.
So, would that mean that printing money is illegal?
Right. As it is now.
Yeah. Do you think it would still be illegal, or? Because illegal would have to be determined by usable, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you use it without it being considered communication?
I guess you couldn't.
Which would mean that there wouldn't be a point to money.
Yeah.
So, assuming there's no point to money either, that would mean that the government wouldn't get paid to do anything, so they'd eventually run out of money unless they kept printing it.
Yeah.
So you know how nowadays it costs money to print money, right?
So stupid.
I don't know how that logic works, but it does. I promise. Hold on. I want to do a quick Google search just to confirm. Does it cost money to print money? Yeah, okay, it does.
Yeah.
It does, yeah, okay. It does actually cost money to make money. Therefore, if the government still goes off of you have to pay someone to make money, you would have to um, you'd have to be communicating with them, right?
Mhm.
Because whoever you communicate with has to make your money for you. So, how do you think jobs would work?
Mm. I
Like,
mean,
would people still have to work at places, or would you just have to steal whatever you wanted?
well, doing something is communicating, right?
Let's say communication isn't illegal, communication with others is illegal.
Okay.
So, you can still talk to yourself, but it's not like you can pretend to talk to yourself when you're actually talking to other people type thing, right? Because that would also be considered illegal.
I'm done with this. I can't. I'm done. Right.
Yeah, so then that would mean that whatever you do to communicate with other people has to be done by either the government or someone that doesn't care about the death penalty.
Mhm.
This doesn't mean that the people communicate. No, does this mean that the people being communicated with would also be under the death penalty if they don't talk back?
If they don't talk, because if we're talking about communication strictly being illegal, I would assume that people that weren't communicating, even when they're being communicated to, wouldn't be arrested.
I'd assume that too, honestly, because you're not communicating, you're just having someone communicate with you. Now, I
Yeah.
understand if someone is communicating with you, like, maybe because you asked them to, but, like, I feel like if you ask someone to communicate with you, that is punishable by death penalty.
Yeah.
However, if you don't say anything to them and they're just talking to you, then I don't think that's death penalty.
No. Like, if someone just walked up to you and just like, hey, I'm gonna be talking to you now, and the other person just either doesn't acknowledge it or doesn't say anything back, then then only one of the people would be punished. The
So let's
person
say
just.
you wanted to scare somebody, like intentionally, right?
Mhm.
Since facial expression is considered language, if you react like being scared to whatever the person tries to scare you with, that is language.
Yeah.
In other words, if you scare somebody, you and whoever you scare is punishable by death penalty.
Yeah. So.
So, no, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. So, literally doing anything at this point is just against the law.
Yeah, yeah, basically. Unless you're like unless you're doing something without the intention of communication, I don't think that's punishable by death penalty. Of course, you can't just talk to somebody and say it was an accident. The government monitors what you say. Like,
Yeah. But then, if you try to communicate to them that it was an accident, that would be communication.
yes, of course. So if you communicate, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, that's too bad, death penalty, right?
Yeah.
Not because you apologize not because you try to apologize for something that isn't, apologizable or whatever,
Yeah.
just because that is considered communication.
Right.
So if somebody accidentally does something to you, um, you're both punishable to death penalty if you try to say, "Oh no, it's okay," right?
Yeah.
So simply doing like hand gestures is also communication.
Which means
You could
sign
not tell
language.
anybody in any way, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that." So you just have to live with it.
Yeah. You
Say
just
somebody
either have.
tries to
What?
say somebody does something that you didn't want them to do, right?
Yeah.
They can't tell you that, and you can't tell anything to them, right? You
Right.
can't tell them they were wrong, and they can't apologize to you.
Right.
If either of those things occurred, that could be death penalty for both people.
Right.
Or maybe the person that maybe you think that somebody does something wrong, but like you can't tell them that, of course. But if they apologize to you and you don't acknowledge it at that point, you're not punishable by death penalty because you didn't say anything back.
Right. And anyway, is acknowledging considered communication? Like you're like communicating to them that you heard what they're saying?
Yeah. If you tell somebody in any way that you know what they said, that means that they said something and that you are also telling them this. So both people will be the death penalty, yes. Which means acknowledging anything that anybody does is death penalty.
Right. So like at this point you could just forget about language as a whole.
Oh yeah.
It's not even a part of your life anymore.
It isn't, because what is your life? Is your life waking up in the morning, eating food, going to school, going to work? Can't do either of those.
Nope.
Can't go to school because if somebody's teaching you, can't do that, right? You can't get a permit from somebody to teach because that's communication.
Yeah.
You can't learn from other people because that is communication.
Right.
So you really would just have to wake up and just eat. You'd have to wake up, eat. If there's anything you'd like to do that doesn't involve you communicating with anyone, it's okay, but...
But what even is that at this point?
Okay, so let's consider this, right? I know art is a very vague term, but what do you think that would be like? Art is a form of communication.
That is true. So,
in other words, pictures are communication, videos are communication.
Right.
Even if you know
Wait, what? You sound so far away.
Oh no, I'm sorry. If there's no like, if you make a drawing or you make a video, that's communication no matter what is in the drawing or video.
Yeah.
That means it's illegal to do practically anything.
Yeah. So like basically just existing and eating is the only thing at this point that's considered legal.
Oh well, you can sleep, but like eating and sleeping is probably the extent. Like you can't really do much anything else.
So basically, you're only able to do whatever keeps you able to survive and function. So everything else.
Oh yeah, of course.
Is illegal.
Yeah. You can walk, you can move, you can't write things down like to save them for later. Maybe like let's say you have like a calendar app that can remind you of things. If you're making an alarm, whether it's for yourself or for anybody else, is that communication?
I mean, if you have
like, maybe
label...
you need to wake up at a specific time in the morning, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the alarm, like, labeled, and having it say, like, wake up, or, like, remind someone to do something. If you have it labeled, then that's considered communication. I forgot to...
Yeah.
Let's go, dude. So yeah, I guess setting reminders and calendars and all that would be illegal.
Oh, yeah. This would mean that, well, you wouldn't have anything to make the calendars on, for example, because how would you make, like, modern technology without being able to communicate with anyone in any way?
You know, that's a point. Yeah.
For example, let's talk about, like, your Switch that you're playing on, yeah?
Yeah.
There has to be concept artists, like communicators, directors, for, like, monitoring of production for that kind of stuff, right? So that would be communication no matter what role you play in the production of it is.
That's true.
Therefore, you could not make or have technology without it being communication. In other words, this would just be a very totalitarian, like, dictatorship, right?
Yeah, this is like Soviet Russia at this point.
Yeah, maybe beyond Soviet Russia, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it's like maybe a mix of like Soviet Russia, North Korea, and like everything else bad.
Yeah.
Because not only can you not communicate, you can't have things for communication, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just you can't have this because you can communicate. It is the people that make this how to communicate with each other to make it. Therefore, you owning it is illegal.
Yeah. So
This would mean that, like, okay, another really good example. Um, when people pass away, right?
right.
They can leave things behind for like future generations, maybe their children.
Right.
Maybe this is like a recent thing, and like grandfather didn't know about what the future would hold, right?
Right.
How would you explain to the government that this isn't communication because my grandfather didn't know about this?
It would be considered like learning something, like a learning experience, right?
Yeah, and learning because school doesn't work would be communication.
Yeah.
So that would mean that even like you discovering things, like maybe something in the attic, right? Super illegal. Can't do it.
So everything's just.
So this begs the question: what can you do and what can't you do?
I mean, I guess it's kind of obvious what you can't do, and that's communicating.
Yeah. But communicating is very based off things like context.
Right. So, in conclusion, life would be hell.
Yeah. It would be a more livable hell than what we already have today, pretty much.
I mean, but we use technology to communicate these days.
We do, yes.
So, without that, but like, if we have to like if we're not allowed to use technology, do we know about the existence of technology, or do we live life not even knowing that it's there and we don't even care?
Well, the government has to monitor you, and you have to know that somehow, right? You don't think there would people be just like walking around and listening to what you're saying, right? You'd have to think there'd be some type of technology so they can, you know, maybe catch up with you if you try to run, for example.
Yeah.
So technology has to exist, it just can't be something that's accessed by, like, the public road.
Right. So
So the government has access to technology that we do now, but nobody else does.
Yeah.
So, I guess, like, to conclude this, maybe, like, for other people that may see this, how would you determine what is considered illegal, right? There has to be some way for the government to tell you these things cannot be done whatsoever, right? The government can communicate with people, but people can't communicate with each other or the government.
Yeah.
I guess that'd be the whole takeaway of this.
Yeah, good question for anybody that's watching if this ends up on YouTube or anything.
Well, if this does end up on YouTube, shout out YouTube, Pixagonest on Twitter and YouTube, self-plug.
Self-plug. Hey, follow me on YouTube.
No, but go ahead.
Even though that would be communicating and that would be illegal, but knowing that you can and that it's legal is a cool experience. So therefore, subscribe.
You know you can communicate with others because you know what communication is, but you can't communicate with other people without being punished by the death penalty.
Right.
So, of course, death penalty can be a variety of things, but you're going to end up dead, right?
Right.
So, this isn't a question of this isn't a question of what can't you do. It would be what can you do without finding out from other people. Because if you're trying to find out from other people, you're communicating.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a question for YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, what do you guys think you can do without it being illegal if communication was banned?
If communication was banned in every way, shape, or form, yeah.
How do I get back on the platform?
In other words, that would mean just like no music spin a little more. You might have to shoot the thing a little more.
Yeah.
No, like shoot the thing that makes it move.
Alright. Just have it go all the way around, right?
Well, alright, so I guess like what we could get out of this is a lot of things would be illegal borderline, but how would you determine what isn't illegal without finding out from other people? Of course, the government might not want to tell you because it may be evil. It may want people to try to communicate with other people to kill them off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just like a really strict dictatorship.
Yeah.
So, where do you think this would take place? Do you think this will be a global thing, per se? Well, actually, no, we can leave that to YouTube, too. We can leave that to YouTube or anyone that watches this.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I'm definitely planning on uploading this.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks for coming.
So,
like...
talk. So, like, essential question, things to remember for people on YouTube, because this is going to be our conclusion. You can't use any type of language. This means no music, anything written or spoken. No art, no pictures or videos. But the government has technology and you don't. Right? So you have to figure out what's illegal and what's illegal without asking other people, telling other people any way, shape, or form. Right? Of course, you can't ask the government either because that's also illegal.
Yeah.
So unless the government directly tells you without you requesting the information in any way, it is communication, therefore death penalty. So of course there are a lot of things we didn't get to answer, but like there are definitely things that could be answered and like more questions that could be asked, right?
Yeah, this could be part 2.
But that can be another time if we do decide to do the same.
Yeah.
So I guess just one final note. At Pixagonest on YouTube and Twitter, follow me. No, but like I've said all I want to say. If there's anything else you want to say before you stop recording, go ahead.
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, if you like the video, if you enjoy the video, go ahead and like it. And if you want to see more of this stuff, go ahead and subscribe.
And ring the notification bell because you want to get notifications. Yeah.
And yeah, ring the bell and turn on notifications. And
no, turn off notifications.
Yeah, I need to stop talking before my brain shuts down because this is probably as good as the information you're getting out of this video. If I continue to talk anymore, my brain will literally fry.
Yeah. Alright, well, cool.
Alright, so, bye everyone.